All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm just going to say a quick word of prayer and then turn it over to Eric. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for many blessings. Thank you for the Thanksgiving. Thank you for all the time with family. Lord, be with us now that the Sabbath is upon us. Thank you that Eric is with us, that he was able to get back from Nigeria safely. Lord, be with us for this time that we're here, listening to him talk about the project, Lord. And please continue to bless in this project. Help him to know which directions to go. And Lord, we just ask that you would make this all come together to your honor. Amen.
Hello, everybody. I think most everybody knows who I am, so um, Mrs. Boothby here, she's known me longer than anybody. My sister actually was one of her students when she was Miss Edwards, and then when I had the privilege of her being my teacher, it was, I think, the first or second year of her being Mrs. Boothby. So I started coming here to our Friday night youth Bible study, and I was bringing in the tail end of the youth, and when I started coming here about 2 years ago, Joey gave me a book, and the book was Righteousness by Faith, and it was based on the Jones and Wagner 1888 message. And I took that book and I went home and I began reading it, and I would come back every week for the Bible study. I wasn't like pouring through it. I was, at a nice pace. I'd read a little bit each day, and I'd come back after the week, and I would tell Joey about, wow, this is just really amazing. The things that I'm learning from this, and the concept of all this. So then, there was a young lady that I had met online that had kind of caught my eye, and she was from Nigeria, and her and I were planning for an extended period of life spent together. So as I was preparing, what I had thought in my mind was I was going to go to her village, and we were going to try to set up some sort of I was thinking about a church originally, like doing a small church within my house, and then I was thinking about kind of trying to base what I was going to do around my Wednesday night Bible study. So I have a Wednesday night Bible study at my house, and it's anybody's welcome, but so far it's been mainly men, and we would get together. I would prepare food, and then we would go through Bible studies. During that Wednesday night Bible study, we've had two people that have already committed their lives to God and gotten baptized as a result of our Wednesday night Bible studies in just about 2 years. And so we would prepare food, put food in their belly, and then I always thought, man, if somebody's going to feed you, you might want to listen to what they have to say. So I was going to base that opinion, that model around at the village. The village was called Longtong, and that was my goal. I was going to have like a home church start out, make a potluck every Sabbath, and then invite the local people to come to the home church, or just come to the potluck. Maybe somebody comes for 4 weeks in a row. There's so many of the haves and have-nots in this area. I mean, it is just unbelievable, the haves and the have-nots. And even the haves would probably be considered here as have-nots. So it's just, it blows your hair back, as you can tell. So I went there in May to to do my forward, on the ground assessment of the whole situation. And I was praying the whole time as we went there, as, you know, as I was on approach to the date to go, and then when I landed, that God's will be done, that everything, you know, I don't want anything to impede my way. And when I got there, from day one, my relationship with this young lady just disintegrated, and it went from bad to worse. And I ended up, by the third day I was there, with, I don't know, some type of bacterial poisoning from some stuff called kanu. And kanu is a drink that's made from guinea corn, and it's kind of a milky, cloudy substance, and they drink it. And somebody suggested I try some of them, and I tried it, and with 2 swigs of it, about 5 hours later, I thought I was gonna die. It was 90 some degrees out, and I was freezing to death, and the toilet and we got to be really close friends for the next 48 hours. So fast forwarding, 2 days after I got my health back, I had decided that it was time for me to move on from this relationship that I'd been nurturing for almost 2 years now. And we had somebody that we had hired to take us to the village, to give us transportation while we were at the village. And this person was coming to take us to the village, and I said, I need you to take me back to the capital city. So the village is this way, the capital city is this way. So he picked me up, and we started driving back to the capital city. And about an hour down the road, he asked me, why are we not going to the village, and why are we going to the capital city? And I proceeded to tell him about what had just transpired, and how my hopes and everything that I had put into this, just pretty much over the past 3 days had just disintegrated. And this young man, his name was Christopher, and he owned this long-range transportation company. They would do long-range transportation. They would also do security transportation for VIPs, and document transportation and stuff like that. So he had come, he heard that I was an American, and he had came, rather than sending somebody else to come do it, he wanted to make sure it got done right, so he came to do it himself. And at that point, as I'm telling him, you know, what had just transpired, I was literally at one of the lowest points of my life. And because I, you know, going on almost 2 years, I'm ready to commit my life to this. And he looked at me and he says, Eric, I don't know you from anybody, but please do not give up on the Nigerian people. We need somebody with your love and your compassion to come and to do something for us, because we don't get no help. The government doesn't help us. So many people are just starving. They don't have education. There's public schools, but the kids can't even go to the public school because they can't afford transportation to get to the public school. They live too far away to walk. So I saw a third world, and even some, what people might call, I would call like fourth world, you know, where it's just, I mean, just unbelievable, the conditions that some of these people live in. So I had 5 days left. Christopher and I, we spent the next 5 days in Abuja, the capital city, getting to know each other, and we just started bouncing things around. And he suggested that we form an NGO, and through this NGO that we continue on with my dream. And he thought the best idea would be to form a school, that we could start a school, we could form an NGO, and through the NGO we could sponsor the building of the school. So when I left, on the 5th of June. That was our idea. So we started from the 5th of June, and we started filing paperwork with the Nigerian government in order to start this NGO. And the very first thing that we had to do was to give it a name. So it was Mission 1888 is what we started out with, because I was so focused on this righteousness by faith, the Jones and Wagner message, David Gates. I like listening to David Gates. He just gets me so motivated, you know, his testimonials and stuff. And David Gates had said on Advent Media Connect, they did a long interview with him, and he was talking about where he believed that since 1888, there's been 4 more, other than 1888, and the endorsement that Ellen White gave of, had the church have followed that righteousness by faith message, that Jesus would have returned, that we've been given a very similar message 4 separate times between 1888 and now, and the last one being in 2005. And I was like, I just felt in my heart that, you know, I was working, I had a good job, and I would do my Bible study. I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd do my Wednesday night Bible study. Friday night I would come here for my Bible study. I'd go to church on Sabbath, but I just felt like I wasn't doing enough, you know. And so many people, you know, we talk about trying to do whatever it is that we can do, and I just was like, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna quit being lip service, and I'm gonna do this. So I was gonna sell my house. I was gonna sell everything. I'm like, righteous by faith. I'm sink or swim. I'm dumping in the deep end, and either I'll drown or God's gonna help me to swim. So I had my house lined up to be bought on August 30th. August 30th was when we were going to start the process to sell my house. About a week before that, I was fasting for God's guidance in my life, and the Lord told me not to sell my house. I live with my biological father. He lives with me, actually, and it would have been him going to a nursing home, and God said, he told me, he's like, Eric, that's not right, you know, just keep your house, let your dad live in your house, and we'll work something out. So I said, all right, and the very next morning after I decided not to sell my house, I called the guy that was going to buy it, and he was obviously upset, but the very next morning we got the approval for our name for the NGO, and the name that we got the approval for, it ended up being Righteousness by Faith Empowerment Foundation. So that's the official title of our NGO. We had went through a process of picking out trustees, because we needed trustees for that, and I had picked out 7 trustees. So we had Tammy, formerly Tammy Birch of the Kalamazoo Junior Academy. She's a principal there now. She was one of them. Eleonora was one of them, and Joey. They all had a willingness to want to be part of this. I'm so thankful for Eleonora, because she was, other than my people in Nigeria, Eleonora was the only non-Adventist on my board of trustees, and she came to me and was like, I want to be part of this, and you know, we all have lives and we're all busy, but bless her heart, she was the only one that, out of all of them besides Christopher, she was the only one that, when I called and I said I needed something, she got it done. When she said she would have it done, it was done. And I was so impressed by that. I just was like, praise the Lord. And Um, I've accepted Eleonora as my acting mother here in the United States, and she has since committed $100 a month to supporting our mission. So I went and I applied for a new visa, and I was taking the leap. September 30th, I quit my job, and my plane left on October 10th, so I flew over there on October 10th, and when I left here to go to Nigeria on October 10th, I was gonna never come back. You know, maybe to visit, but not 30 days later. And I was gonna pretty much, other than the fact that I had a name that was given, so the Corporate Affairs Commission is who assigns businesses and titles, and that's who you have to go through in order to get your NGO made official. So other than a name, we had done all this work, but we were at the final approval. So we'd been at the final approval since September 30th, no, August 30th, we'd been at submitting for final approval. So we would submit for final approval. A day later, they'd give us a query, and it would get kicked back. We'd do what they said on the query. We'd submit it again. A week later, it would come back with another query. And I mean, it was like weird things like, you forgot a period here, you know, so we were going through this process back and forth. So I get to Nigeria, and that's all we have, you know, my dream, some money that some people had donated, and a hope. So we got to Nigeria, and we immediately went day two. We went to the immigration office to see what we could do, and so on day two I found out that I was going to have to go home, and I was just, it just literally took the wind right out of my sails. I was so distraught because all I wanted to do was get this done and go forward. So we just kept going, query after query, day after day, started working on, you know, to shift from this, and it was like shut door after shut door. And I want to say it was the second week, Wednesday night. So we had started Bible studies. The first week it was just Christopher and I in my room. I was staying at this place. It's called a Baptist Guest House for missionaries. So I was staying at the Baptist Guest House, and Christopher came over Wednesday night. We did the very first Bible study, the 28 fundamental beliefs of Adventism. We were going through with Christopher because he had since the first time I was there in May, he had been attending Adventist churches in the area, going to from church to church, trying to tell people about our mission and let them know what we were planning to do. So I got there, we did our first Wednesday night Bible study. The second Wednesday, his mother said, we'd like you to come to my house and do Bible study with myself and with Christopher's niece and nephew, Bobo and Tiffany. Now, Bobo and Tiffany they're about the same age. I don't know, maybe 10 years old, 11, something like that. And so we went to get some food. So we stopped and picked up food. We went up to Christopher's mom's house. We got there, we were doing the Bible study, everything went good. Tiffany, she just would, when it was every Bible verse, she was looking, but when it was her turn, she'd stand up and she'd get her Bible and she'd just read. And she was just, I mean, I remember all the, who could find the Bible verse the fastest in school, you know? And I was just going through my Bible, and she would just, I was so impressed by this young girl. And we got done with Bible study, and we were getting ready to leave, and I'm like, giving Chris's mom a hug, and I was like, thank you, you know, she's like, thank you, and I'm like, man, where's my phone at? and we couldn't find my phone. My phone was not there. So my phone was one of two places. It was either where we picked up the food, or it was in the KK. And the KK is a little vehicle about yay wide. It's got two wheels in the back. It goes around like this to the front. Got one wheel in the front. The driver drives in the front. Typically, it's just him by himself, but nothing's typical in Nigeria. I've seen like 15 people inside of one of these things, just hanging off the edges and stuff. Construction equipment, you name it. I mean, it's like the Wild West out there. So we went back to where we got the food, and of course it's closed down. So we went back to my room, and we just started trying to figure out how we were going to do this. And my phone was turned onto airplane mode, so it's not even communicating with the satellites. Now, there was some vagaries when you would do searches that maybe Apple could still track your phone even though it's on airplane mode, but you got to have all these, you got to have your Apple ID and all this stuff. So, yeah, well, where's my Apple ID and how do I recover my Apple ID? Well, it's all on my phone. So, we were just, it literally ranked right up there with one of the worst days of my life, because now all the money that I had is on my phone, which is gone. My dad's phone number is on my phone, which is gone. Everybody's phone number, everything that I have in my life is on my phone, and it's gone. And we're in a city of 600 to 700,000 people, and it's on this KK, or at this place where these kids were, and we have no idea what to do. So finally Christopher left at about midnight, and I laid in bed, and I finally fell asleep. I woke up the next morning, and I got on my knees, and I just was like, Father, if I'm doing something wrong here, please just keep this, shut it down, you know. But I need some answers, you know. You say be willing, and I'm here and I'm willing, but I need some answers. I need some verification, and so Christopher came, picked me up, and we went to these phone experts, and we went into the depths of walking down a little tunnel through some buildings and around a corner into a secret place, and the preeminent Apple mines in the whole city of Jos, Nigeria, and they're like, basically, you know, they said the risk of somebody using your phone is next to nil. They said that the security that's on an Apple iPhone 16 is amazing. So they'd probably be better off throwing it in the river, you know, because they can't, the hackers, they say the hackers don't even know how to get into them. But, you know, this person may not know that. All they know is they got an Apple iPhone 16 that cost over $1,000 US, which would be potentially more money than they'd ever make in their life, you know, and they have it in their hand. So our next course of action, Chris felt, was that we needed to go to the police station. So we went to the police station to file a report. It wasn't like somebody stole it. It was, you know, it was my fault. You know, it fell out of my pocket and I left it. So we were at the police station, met the chief of police for Jos, Nigeria, developed you know, we had a nice handshake, good conversation and everything. And we were going to fill out the police report, and we're sitting in this room. There's a lady here that's typing up the police report. There's another lady at this desk here, and then there's another lady sitting over here, and there's a man that would come in and out ever so often. Everybody has uniforms on. It's very, if you've never been abroad, I would say most African countries are very militant, you know, so everybody that has any type of authority has the uniform on, and it's probably meant to be, you know, to scare you, shock and awe or whatever, but, you know, I was like, you know, I wore a uniform, you know, I put my pants on just like the rest of you guys, I'm like, whatever, you know, but, we're sitting in there, they're typing up this report, and all of a sudden I see Christopher stands up and he's got his phone in his hand, and I see him doing something, and he puts the phone up to his ear, and all of a sudden his eyes get like this big, and he's like, you'll never believe this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I believe the Holy Spirit told me to just call your phone, and it's ringing. Your phone is ringing. And I'm like, how is my phone ringing? He's like, I don't know, but it's ringing. And then his eyes get even bigger, and I hear him talking to somebody. He's talking in Hausa, which is the dialect of the northern Nigeria. And he's like, it's the KK driver, and he has your phone. I said, how is he talking on my phone? And he says, I have no idea, but we're gonna meet up with him in an hour. When we get done here, we're gonna meet up with him at a different location. He's all the way on the other side of the town. So I was like, praise the Lord. And we got out of there. As soon as we got out of the police station, we were driving to where we go, and we had to pull the car over, and we had to pray. And I believe I cried when I realized that I had lost my phone, and I cried even harder when God had brought my phone back to me, because we tried it. Christopher and we tried it just for grins and giggles. I put it on airplane mode, and I locked it, and I gave it to Christopher, and I said, see if you can turn my phone from airplane mode onto cell service, and it would not allow him to do that. So somehow this KK driver was able to activate my phone from being locked down and turn it onto cell service. So it was searching for a roaming tower. It found a roaming tower and allowed it to get enough service that when Christopher dialed the number, he was able to come through and connect with my phone. So to me it was a miracle of miracles. Yes, sir.
That's where it happened.
Yes, sir.
Great operation.
That is where it happened. And so we got my phone back, and we had the last query we had gotten for our NGO was, they said that our people we had to sign affidavits and have them notarized that the affidavits weren't on there, and we're like, the affidavits are most certainly on there. So we had to go to a lawyer on the other side of town. So we drove to the other side of town. We saw this lawyer. He looked at all the paperwork, and he says, the affidavits are fine. You tell them people, he signed his initials by it, sent it back in. He says, you tell them people that I say it's okay, everything's fine. So then we got that done. We drove to North Jos, which is where the predominantly Muslim area is, and that was quite the experience, because here's a white American, which would draw attention from the get-go, but not only a white American, but a white American covered in tattoos is standing in the probably 96 out of 100 people that you see are Muslim. And it was like, I felt like I was standing there naked, because everybody that would come by, they just were, I mean, there would be people tripping over themselves because they just were like, what is this person, and why are they in our area? And some people were nice, some people were not so nice, but it was a very interesting time. And we're sitting there getting some work done on the vehicle that we were in, and I looked over to Chris, and I said, I said, hey, did you get an instant query already on that resubmission? And he said, I don't know. And he looks at his watch, and I heard something go, burnt, burnt. And he grabs his phone, he looks at his phone, and once again, his eyes get like this big, and he's like, we were just approved. They gave us the final approval for the NGO. Yes, sir.
What's an NGO?
It's a non-governmental organization. So it's an entity, it's like a business that we have formed that will allow us to operate within the Nigerian country and give us ability to do certain things that your average person couldn't do, especially just some American guy over there trying to do whatever he could do, you know. So we got the final approval. So in the day that I was on my knees at the end of my rope, and I said, Lord, you got to give me a sign. Either tell me to shut this down and go home, or give me a sign. We got my phone back, and we got the final approval for our NGO. So we were, once again, I'm like, Chris, we gotta stop the car. We gotta pray about this one again. So we prayed together, and we thanked the Lord, and then the next thing on our mission was, we'd been looking for some land. So before we even left, Christopher's dad, who's been a farmer there forever, he had looked in Jos South, which is like where most of the government areas is in Jos South. So they thought that'd be a good area. So he had looked in this area called Dew, and with just Christopher and his dad and the couple people that they knew, we had people offer us land. So we need 22 plots per hectare, and we wanted 2 hectares of land. So he had found land for us at $800 or 800 naira a hectare, and a naira is like 1,400 and something per US dollar. So for 100 US dollars, you get anywhere, it fluctuates, but anywhere from 150,000 to 144,000 naira. So that wasn't what we were looking for. I had prayed with my friend John Lanphier before I left, and prayed with Christopher, and the number that God had given me was 250,000 per plot. And when I told Christopher that God's going to give us land at 250,000 per plot, Christopher laughed at me, and he was like, it'll never happen. And I said, well, get ready, because we're going to see some miracles. So we had the offer at 800,000 per plot. Then we went, when we got there, I landed on Friday night, so my first Sabbath, I didn't get back to civilization till really late, so we didn't go to church that Sabbath. But the following Sabbath, we went to the conference headquarters church it's called Plateau Bauchi State Conference. So it'd be like the Michigan Conference, the head church for the Michigan Conference. And we went there, and they had me come up in front and tell the entire church what we were there to do, and we did that. And then they were like, well, we got all these people that know people over here and that know this and know that, and we're gonna get this done for you. We're gonna find some land. So they started on this search for some land, and it was there's a lady, Christopher calls her Madam Christie. Her name is Christie. She knew a lot of people, so they were talking to this, people talking to this. Well, we're gonna have a meeting on Tuesday, we're gonna have a meeting on Wednesday, we're gonna have a meeting on Thursday, we're gonna have a meeting Friday, we should know by Monday. Monday rolls around, nothing happens. Tuesday, oh, we got another meeting. And then finally it came out, and the powers to be within the Bauchi Plateau Conference, they came back and they're like, after talking with all the elders of the land, because they got chiefs and elders and all this stuff. We found land, so the place that we found with Christopher was like here. Let's say this is the city, it was here, and this place was here. It was even more remote. The land we found is, the best that they can offer is 1 million per plot. And we were like, well, before we even got here, we found this land with people that are just farmers for 800,000 per plot. And now with all this pull and authority that you guys have, the best you can offer us is even further away, is 1 million per plot. And we were like, I told her, I said, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but that's almost insulting, you know, that's the best you can do. So once again, Christopher said, well, let's look at Joss East. So he calls a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy, and we're looking in Joss East. So we got a meeting tomorrow morning with this dude. So we go to this hotel, and there's this guy. We sit down, and they show up, and it's Christopher's friend, who we'll call Roland, and the man with the white beard. So that's just how I know him. Roland, and his name ain't Roland, but that's what we call him. So Roland and the man with the white beard. And we sit down and we tell him, you know, we want to build a school. We want to have our school as self-supporting as it can. We're going to try and do a farm. We want to raise chickens. We want to do all these things. We're trying to garner support from people within the United States that can adopt children that go to the school, and we're going to figure out what at the end of the road, what the price will be for a child to go to school there per month. And I'm thinking it's going to be pretty inexpensive, you know, maybe anywhere from $30 to $50 a month for this kid to go to school, that won't be able to afford it. You know, they're either orphans or they're indigent, and that was our goal, was to make the school available to children that can't go to school. And obviously, if there's a family that wants to send their kids there, but they can afford it, you know, we'll gladly take your money, you know. But our goal is to reach out to people that can't. And they loved it. They're like, there's no NGOs in Joss East, and these terms like Joss East and Joss South and Joss North, it's called an LGA, so it's a local government authority, and that's like the politicians that control that area. It'd be like townships, I think, or I don't know if it's a county, probably more on the level of like a township that would control that geographical area. But they're kind of broad, because there's some of them areas, there's just nothing really out there, you know, so it has to go for a while, because otherwise you'd be just governing some hills or whatever, you know. So he's like, we want to go to the next guy. So we're like, okay, let's go. So we get in our cars and we drive across town, and we come to this area, and it's like government buildings, and we go in there, and we end up at the house, and this guy is the deputy speaker for the state. So Joss is the capital city of the state of Plateau. So Plateau is called Plateau because Joss is about a mile high in elevation. So that state got the name Plateau, and this guy is the fourth in command in the government for the state of Plateau. So in Michigan, that would be like Dana Nessel, the same level. Dana Nessel, I believe, is the fourth in command in the state of Michigan. So we go and we meet this man. We pray when we get in there with him, and he loves everything. He's like, praise the Lord. I don't know if he said praise the Lord, but all of us said praise the Lord. And he says, I'm going to find you land. Sat right there, shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and he says, I'm going to find you land, and it's going to be a good price, and I will pay for half of what it costs for that land. And so you only have to pay half of what the value of the land is. So we leave there, and we're like, it was like this load was just taken off. So 2 hours later, they call us and they're like, you wanna go look at some land? So we're like, yeah, so we drive back out to this area in Joss East, and the town is called Forbur, Forbur. So we go to Forbur, and it's beautiful. There's like nothing around. There's mountains on the hill over here, mountains over here, and it's just, and we go this area, and it's just gorgeous, and we're like, this is it, this is where we're meant to be, you know. So the next morning, when we're supposed to meet up, and they're like, did you like that land? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, we're sorry, but the deputy speaker is Muslim, and he cannot sell you land or pay for half of your land, because he will lose all of his, they'll just destroy him, his whole power source. We'll still find you some land, but he's not gonna be able to finance the other half of it like he had promised. But he has made it known to us that anything that the government can do of Joss East, that they will support you in any way, shape, or form. So we had to shift gears. So then we looked at this land, and the owner, it was beautiful, but the owner was in Florida of all places. So we're waiting for the owner to get back, and she had 120 plots of land. She wanted to sell the whole thing, and I'm like, I can't afford 120 plots of land. And she was like, so the very first price that they offered us was $250,000 per plot. The same price that I told Christopher we were gonna get the land for, and he laughed at me about. So they come back with $250,000 per plot, and I said, we can't afford 120 plots at $250,000 per plot. I said, they're like, well, we could sell half of it. Okay, and I'm like, well, 60 at 200. I said, I don't think we can afford that either. And they were like, okay, well, we'll drop it down to 230 per plot, and we'll sell you 50 plots. And I said, we can do that. So we're waiting for this lady to get back from Florida. Oh, she'll be back this weekend, and she don't come back this weekend. Oh, it'll be back the next weekend. She don't come back the next weekend. Then finally I have to leave. So I get back here, and once again, during this whole process, I told Christopher, I said, it seems like Jesus wants me to not know anything. He doesn't want me to have any dates for anything. He doesn't want me to have any knowledge of when something's going to happen. He just wants me to just be going through this. And I told Christopher, I said, I think it's because he just wants me to just trust that he's going to do it. And I've learned so much about faith and about trusting through this process. So 2 days ago, Christopher called me. He says, I'm going to look at another piece of land. So he goes and looks at it, and he comes back, and he's like, it's beautiful. It's off the road. It's behind the other land that we looked at where the deputy speaker was at. And he said, they got 70 plots there for you. And I was like, okay. I said, tell them if they can sell it to us for less than 230 per plot, we'll buy all 70 plots on the spot. And he came back and he said they accepted our offer at 220 per plot. And this morning, we wire transferred our money into their account, and we purchased that land, 70 plots of land, for 220,000 naira per plot. Plus we got 2 buildings, because somebody was attempting to build a poultry farm out there. So they had built 2 brand new buildings that have never been occupied or used for anything. So there's 2 brand new buildings and a well, and we got the whole chunk of land for $14,000 US. So, so since I've been over there, we've gotten our land, we've gotten our approval for the NGO, we've gotten a statement from FIRS, which is their equivalent of the Internal Revenue Service, so it's Federal Internal Revenue Service. We've gotten a certificate from them of tax exemption. We've gotten I personally have a Nigerian identification number, which is the equivalent of a Social Security card. So I have my own Nigerian Social Security card. I have BVN, which is a bank verification number, which will allow me to open a bank when I get my my residency card. It'll allow me to open a bank, and then the only other thing that was holding us up was this thing, and it was called a SCUML, SCUML, and it was a certificate that we needed because they have a list of businesses within Nigeria where money laundering goes on the most, and third on that list is not-for-profit Christian-based NGOs. So we had to get this SCUML certificate stating that we would, you know, we're going to accept responsibility, and they're going to hang us by our toes or whatever if we get caught for money laundering, that we have to be, everything has to be, our I's are all dotted and our T's are crossed and everything. So, so God has really been moving. He's sometimes I feel a little beat up and a little ragged, but it seems to me like when I get to the point where I'm at the end of my rope and I'm ready to just fall off and slam into the ground, that God comes by and he says, I got you. I sometimes I say, Father, I wish that I didn't have to get to that point to where I feel like I'm just gonna give up. I wish it could just happen, you know. Please, Father, can we get this done? And it just happens, but it doesn't. And that's kind of the theme of David Gates with what he said, being a missionary. So I just need to get used to that. But so that's basically where we at. I have some pictures and I guess maybe some videos that I'd like to show you of a few things. And we just hope, number one, we need prayers more than anything, because, you know, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, which is just a teeny tiny little thing, I looked at mustard seeds, they're really small, that we can tell a mountain to move into the ocean and it'll move into the ocean. So we need some prayers that will be strong, and we need as much support as we can get, because my money tree, it died last winter, so it just ain't producing very well anymore. But God says that he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, so he's going to provide. Go ahead. I'm not very tacky. I just have a heart and a desire. So this guy right here is the deputy speaker, and in the state of Plateau, he's the guy that's the fourth in command, and this guy right here, he's rolling, okay, the guy with the white shirt on, and just so you have, it doesn't mean anything, but he became rolling because in one of the moments in my life where I was doing what Eric wanted to do, I befriended this guy. I was living on the north side of Kalamazoo. I was the only white guy on the whole block, and I befriended this guy on the north side of Kalamazoo, and he was a gangster disciple. I mean, from Gary, Indiana. Probably killed people before, but we used to smoke pot together, and Roland and I were good friends. And he looks just like Roland, so I was like, I'll never remember what his name is, but every time I see him, I think Roland. So I said, can we call you Roland from now on? And he was like, okay. So that's Roland. And that's the man with the white beard. And I don't know what his name is either, but whenever Chris and I talk about either him or him, it's Roland and the man with the white beard. So that's how we make it through these. This is just some of the stuff that has happened that, I don't know, I'm nobody. I fixed floor scrubbers for a living, and before that I drove a school bus. I'm just a guy, but you know, by the grace of God, we started this NGO, and one of the things we had to get was a rubber stamp and then a seal if we had to make official documents. So there's our rubber stamp, Righteousness by Faith Empowerment Foundation with a sign and date on there. And then this one has got our own special number that's assigned to our NGO. And I just thought, I don't know, I'm simple, but I thought that was pretty cool, so I thought I'd put that up there, okay? This here is Christopher. This is my right-hand man, and this guy has just put forth everything that he has to put forth towards this. I mean, just worked tirelessly to the point where, I don't know, God, it must have been an angel that God sent me, because he had just stopped working. He's losing money to forward this mission, and that's his mother right there. And then down at the end, you see Bobo peeking in, so that's his nephew Bobo, and his mother, bless her heart, I love her like that's my Nigerian mother. So I got an American mother and I got a Nigerian mother, and just great people. When we got to her house, it was, Christopher said, well, Eric, I just want you to be prepared when we get to Mom's house, because it is not going to be what you expect. And I tell you this myself, that if that was the house that my mom was living in, I would have never have taken Eric to that house. That's how bad it was. And it was so, I was so overwhelmed at the conditions that they lived in that during this first week and a half before we got anything going, I had money that I brought for myself. It was my own money that I saved up, and I put $1,000 into buying blocks, and we're at the point, we're about halfway done. We're gonna build an addition onto their house so they can have a kitchen in their own house, and so they can have a bathroom in their own house, because their kitchen was outside, right next to the hog pen, and their bathroom was right next to that. So they had to, in the middle of the night, they'd have to leave their house and go out to use the bathroom. So I was like, Christopher fought me tooth and nail. He's like, Eric, there's no way I'm gonna allow you to spend your money to fix my mom's house, because the very first thing out of anybody's mouth is gonna be like, oh, you just got him around so he can help you fix up your mom's house. And I'm like, dude, you only got one mom, you know? I said, my mom, in February, she'll be dead for 10 years. And I said, I miss my mother so much, so much. Moms are just the best thing. I said, let's just do this for your mom. And he's like, all right. So we're currently trying to upgrade her house. And this right here, I look like a criminal.
I thought it was a bubble shop.
I look like a criminal, but this is my equivalent of a Nigerian Social Security card, which I was like, I'm like, man, that's cool. I got my own Nigerian Social Security card. It's called the NIN. Okay.
We won't publish it.
Go ahead. Is that all? Okay. So this here, crash course in trying to get things done. You know, you got Christopher, who's just amazing. Some of the skills this guy got and his willingness. We constructed this letterhead on my phone. We created this letterhead, Christopher did, on my phone, and then took it to a place. We had it printed and we had it saved, so we have a digital copy, and we made some copies. And this basically, it says here, Executive Chairman, Plateau State Internal Revenue Service, PSIRS. Dear sir, we are wanting to request a tax certificate of tax exemption for Righteousness by Faith Empowerment Foundation, a non-governmental organization registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria. Our organization is dedicated to providing free education to orphans and indigent children, and in the off-season provide clean drinking water to undeserved communities within the Plateau State. As a non-profit organization, we are exempt from paying taxes under the relevant provisions of the Nigerian tax laws and regulations. In regards, we kindly request a certificate of tax exemption for your esteemed office. This certificate will enable us to access certain benefits and exemptions, allowing us to focus on our mission to support community development through educational, spiritual, and health initiatives, offering sustainable growth and empowerment. Below are the required documents attached to this. So we had a certificate of true copy, certificate from the registration of CAC, constitution or trust deed, tax identification number. We will be grateful if you could process our request and issue the tax certificate of exemption at your earliest convenience. And then it says, thank you for this matter, sincerely, Christopher Marcus, Secretary, and then the number for our thing. So that was like our, other than our actual NGO certificate, which I had a hard copy, but I couldn't find a digital copy, so I didn't get that sent. And now we have some videos. Maybe. I want people to come to Nigeria. I know it seems scary with all the things that you hear. So if you drew a line across Nigeria, we're in what you would call the middle belt area. So if you drew a line across Nigeria, just north of where we're at is where everything's going on. There was some skirmishes between the Fulani herdsmen, they're Muslim herdsmen, and Christians, and it was probably from here to Kalamazoo away from where we were at. But for the most part, it's more north. I just hope that people will find it upon their hearts to come and see what we're gonna work so hard to build, and hopefully that God blesses, because the people there are so amazing, and it's just such a blessing to be able to meet these people. There we go. Okay, so that's the road, and this is the road where you go to the land where we're gonna buy. And this kind of just stops abruptly, but. So this is the conference headquarters church, and they're praying for our mission. So I had just finished telling them what I was telling them in English, and he's now interpreting it in Hausa. The one thing I saw, I'm not picking at nobody, I just, something that I noticed. I was in 3 different Adventist churches. and a Baptist church, and I never once saw a woman with her head uncovered. Every woman that goes to church, they have their heads covered. And I thought that was, I was kind of impressed in my own little way that, you know, because, I mean, if you read the Bible, that's what it says, you know, and the fact that they do that. So, this is the land, these are the two buildings that are on the land where the well is. And this is Christopher that you hear talking. That's Roland right there. And everybody wears Crocs or slides. And not very many wear flip-flops like the thong flip-flops, but they either have slides on or they're Crocs. I mean, I literally saw a whole construction crew that were working on Christopher's mom's house, and nobody had boots on. They all had Crocs or slides on. Yes, everybody speaks English. The only people that don't speak English are the uneducated. And there's children that don't even know how to speak their native language, but they speak English. But it doesn't, you could sit there and tell them, like, I'll give you an example. I went to a store and I wanted to get a orange pop, and I would call it Fanta. You know, I'm like, hey, could I get a Fanta? And they're like, I said a Fanta, and then I remembered Christopher when he would say it was Fanta. And I'm like, I need a Fanta, and they're like, I said, oh, a Fanta, and they're like, oh. So they're very deliberate in the way they say things. So this is kind of like what it looks like. There's mango trees out here just growing in the wild, and some of these bushes here, they have these little fruits on there. They're little orangish can things about like that, and they got seeds inside of them, and you suck this slime off of the seeds. You don't really eat the seeds. You can swallow the seeds, but they call them monkey fruit, but that might be the official name of it, but they call them monkey fruit. Okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. They grow together in clusters. They're little tan things, kind of like a mini hot dog looking thing. Well, we would crack them open like this and then scoop it out of there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you just suck the slimy stuff off of the seed and then spit the seed out. Monkey fruit. And that's pretty much the only wild animals you'll see in this area are lizards, snakes, and maybe some monkeys. Africa's not like there's no giraffes, there's no rhinoceros, there's no lions. The only place those animals are at are in national parks, and it's because they've ate everything. Literally, they have no comprehension about preserving. If it ain't nailed down, they're gonna eat it, and it'll be gone. Well, depending on the area that you're at, they have black mambas are in Africa, are actually in Nigeria. You know, cobras and stuff. So if you see a snake, it's probably could kill you really easy. But and like they have big pythons too. So this is kind of like what it looks like. We're about a month and a half into the dry season, so things are starting to die off and dry. So they probably won't get another drop of rain until June, late May or early June. So all this, the only thing that's going to be alive is the trees and maybe some of these bushes that they got really deep roots, but it just gets really dry. So what we plan to build our school and then all the rest of the existing land. We got enough land. We figured it out with with 2 hectares of land, we had enough land to build our school and the farm that we wanted to set up. And we were able to get twice that much, so just in case, if everything goes according to plan, maybe we could do a high school later on, you know, with like dormitories and everything, you know, so we could have the whole from kindergarten all the way through. So God gave us enough money that we could do that.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You have to have a special certificate to have Christian education outside the secular education?
Well, there's gonna be, you know, obviously we're gonna have to get permits and everything and prove, but no, not necessarily. It'd be just like, you know, I mean, you or I couldn't go here and set up a school and be like, hey, this is Eric's school.
It's a heavily Islamic country.
Yeah, it definitely is, the majority is Islam, but no, there's a lot of private schools, you know, within the city. You know, you drive through the city and there'll be like a school here, a school there. It's just, the way everything is so different from how it is here. They have hospitals that are just in the middle of nowhere, that's like a private hospital, you know, and you can, like this hospital, we specialize, if you need your appendix out, you go to this hospital, and that's what they do at that hospital. It literally is a different world. Yeah. Yeah, so that's also part of what we were thinking, and you know, that young man in the back, I got lots, I'm gonna lean on him, and I got lots of responsibilities for him to do. He's my PR guy, and so one of the things that we were thinking about is potentially putting word out to all the universities within the U.S. or Adventist universities anywhere else that we would like to make available an opportunity for a teacher that has just graduated to come and spend, you know, God willing, spend a year and dedicate a year of your life to come and be a missionary teacher. And it's pretty much going to be donating a year of your life. We'll pay you, but you're going to get paid as a Nigerian wage, you know, so it's pretty much donating a year of your life. I think they'd make like about $40 US a month would be the equivalent of what they make. Yeah, we're going to have housing on site for all of our staff, because, you know, a lot of people, they don't have cars, they can't afford cars. So you'd have to have housing so they could stay right there. So we're gonna have housing set up on site for the staff to live in. And then we're gonna have a farm, garden, whatever you wanna call it, farm, garden. I don't know if it's necessarily gonna be one big area that'll be like a farm or a garden, but I kinda was thinking about like making it kinda look like a park, kinda like with like, here's a garden where they grow peppers, and then over here's a garden where they grow tomatoes, and then over here's a garden where they grow this, and so that's our thought. You know, we want to, you know, have everything, you know. So when we ask or we interview for a teacher, you know, we can say, look, we're going to give you a competitive wage, we're going to give you housing, you know. Because we just want to make sure that we're able to get the best that God has to offer, you know. So that's pretty much it. Any questions that anybody has or comments or anything?
So you don't have no trouble with the Muslims over there?
Well, I'm sure they do, you know, they, you know, it's been in the news, you know, and like I said, literally, the line that would separate, you know, there's issues everywhere. It's Africa, for Pete's sake, you know, but if you drew the line to where it's like no-go zone, we would be on that line, you know, so.
Yeah, I understand they have certain sectors that let them have, very small places that they let them teach. They could do, Christian Ideal, but if you go outside of that, you're getting your head chopped off.
Yeah, you wouldn't wanna go north of where we're at and try and set something up like that, because you could probably run into some issues, you know? But, you know, like the whole thing with President Trump and with the intervention of the US military and everything involved in over there, I think it was really more of a Boko Haram, which is what everybody knows is a terrorist organization, okay? They may have some points where we know that they're there, okay? Boko Haram has headquarters here, they have something here, so we could legitimately address those issues. But they're like 3 to 4% of all the issues that they have with the problems in Nigeria. The people that are really causing the problems in Nigeria they're called Fulani, and they're herdsmen, okay? So they live wherever their cattle go, and they just, so you can't bomb some guy walking through the middle of a field, you know, because it would be a huge, you think that Afghanistan was an issue and a quagmire, this would be Afghanistan on steroids. So what I believe in my heart, what President Trump was trying to do is to kind of shame the government a little bit, to, you know, for them to realize, man, somebody else is gonna have to come over and take care of our people because we can't protect our own people. But let's just hope that it works. But, you know, on the second hand, if we're all in due diligence and we can look at where the world is and where we're headed today, we should know that these kind of things are gonna happen, you know, because I think that's where we're headed. You know, I'm getting ready for Jesus to come in the clouds, you know, so, yeah, but, yes.
So what about your status as far as being able to go there?
Oh.
You gotta go back?
Yeah, so what I had to come back for is they used to, everything was done on paper. I mean, I've been to like official government offices and everything's written down, you know, and I'm like, where's the computers, you know? So they're switching everything to digital. So when it was paper, they used to allow you could come over on a certain visa, and then while you're in country, you could switch that to another visa. But now it's going to full digital, so they no longer will allow that. So in order for what I needed to get done was, I had to file a thing that was called an expatriate quota. So the expatriate quota is a request from the NGO asking me, the chairman of the NGO, to come over and work at the NGO within Nigeria. So that expatriate quota, it costs about $800, and that will allow me, that the first time it will allow me a year. The second time you pay it again, that gives you a 3-year term, and then the third time it's a 5-year term, and then after that you get to have citizenship. So in order to file for that expatriate quota, we had to have a bank account, amongst other things. I needed to have that NIN. The thing that was holding us up was the bank account. And in order to get the bank account, we had to have that SCUML report, or the SCUML certificate, which is the anti-money laundering. So you go to the SCUML website to get one of those, it says, this is free. And then there's a disclaimer on there, be careful because people will try to sell you this thing and you may end up losing your money. So we had a bank and the head banker says, we got a guy that will get you your SCUML certificate, but it's gonna cost you 60,000 naira. You go to the website, it says it's free and it gives a disclaimer of that, you know. So we were like, okay, we filed for the SCUML certificate. And then we told the guy, hey, if you can get us that SCUML certificate, we'll give you the 60,000 naira. So it just delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and then yesterday morning, our school certificate finally came through, so we got that. This morning, we opened our bank account, so we got a bank account number, we put the bank account number into the expatriate quota. The expatriate quota takes 3 to 4 weeks is what the thing says for that to be done, but we have a man, a very, very good, very, very helpful guy from the immigration office that put us in contact with one of his friends that is gonna take care of us on getting the expatriate quota. As soon as the expatriate quota is approved and we have that certificate, I can then apply for what's called a SVR visa, and that will allow me, an SVR visa can be extended as you go, as the government allows it, it can be extended, and it will allow me to have, what they call a green card. So I'll get over there and I'll be a religious, a religious worker with an NGO, like clerics and stuff like that fall under the same thing. So that'll be the type of visa that I have. So I'm looking at 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, I don't know. I was really hoping to get back there before Christmas, cause I wanted to see what Christmas was gonna be like over there. But, it all depends on how things work. So I'm just, John was gracious enough to give me work, so I've been working in a factory, and that's a whole different ballgame too, because it's been 20 plus years since I worked in a factory, and it was killing me working in a factory because you gotta be standing there and you got people, oh, it's break time, okay, you take your 15-minute break, now it's back to work. You know, I was a field technician and I was my only boss. As long as I got my job done, however I got it done was good, you know, so you know, you get used to doing things a certain way, and now you're at the mercy of some guy with a little bit of authority over you. And your buddy owns the business, so you gotta be in line, because you don't want nobody saying, oh, well, John's friend's over here and he's doing this or doing that, you know, so it's good, but it allowed me to make a little money so I can do things. But yeah, God willing, if it all came through, I'd get on a plane tomorrow, and, well, not tomorrow, but Sunday, I'd get on a plane and I'd fly back there. Yeah. Thank you everybody for your time. Yeah, we just, you know, Joey and I were talking just last Friday about, what was the term that we were, the end something theology?
Oh,
Last generation theology. And I feel that you know, 1888, righteousness by faith, it all kind of wraps up into the last generation theology. So I just got to be occupied and doing things and focused on, you know, I was like, I don't want to have no time where I can be off into anything that I shouldn't be off into. I want to, you know, when I get up in the morning till I put my head on my pillow at night, I want to be doing something effectively for God every day, all day, because otherwise, I'm just human, or more human than maybe anybody is, and I don't want to. I've let myself down one too many times. I don't want to ever do that again. Thank you. It's overwhelming to me, because I know who I am. I know who I've been, and the fact that I'm able to do that, it just, sometimes it's just, you get you get so, the fact that God can use me is